Sonalika, please give me go ahead so that I can start. Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all the participants who have joined today, taking their time out to attend this workshop. DSIR supported PRISM scheme provides the funding support for all these stages of innovation, from ideation to the scale-up. And this workshop aims to guide the innovators in conducting the market survey and creating also a market strategy for the commercialization of product. I welcome our speaker, Mr. Ravi Chalu, sir. Let me just give a brief introduction of our speaker. Mr. Ravi Chalu, sir, has been in this field of management, general management and operations since more than last 20 years. For operations, he has been in more than 8 years. He has envisioned, built and led successful IT products and services organizations over a career spanning 3 decades. He had set up and established product development and service delivery startups, led 4 offshore delivery centers with P&L responsibilities. He also led a delivery organization of 900 plus across 2 delivery centers and onshore service delivery across Europe and US over the last 3+ years. He has managed metric-driven operations with focus on cost efficiency and quality for product engineering more than 20 years and professional service delivery for more than 8 years. He has also worked for the multi-location global projects, including the talent management. He has built and led teams with diverse capabilities, including VP and senior VP from premier institutes. His expertise includes organization restructuring, customer management for larger global accounts, acquire, develop, retain talent, and manage competencies development, create and grow delivery organization. So I will not take more time here, and I welcome our speaker, Mr. Ravi, for this workshop. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anamika. Good afternoon to all of you, and I'm going to start right away. The focus today is market entry and commercialization. Before I actually go into the content, I'm going to very briefly take you through what is it that Bulletproof Your Startup, how does the Bulletproof Your Startup sees the Indian entrepreneurship ecosystem, and why is it important for you to know that? It's important because our cultural upbringing affects how we actually interact and react in this world. And as far as India is concerned, the biggest question we were trying to answer is, why do 95% startups shut down within 3 years? And what we figured was that, Indian youth are encouraged to seek jobs rather than entrepreneurship. They're not trained for entrepreneurship. Nobody coaches them for entrepreneurship. And usually the approach is to start doing something rather than thinking and planning. So a very large number of entrepreneurs, therefore, don't have the ability to think through things and problem solve with an entrepreneur mindset. In fact, most entrepreneurs start building something in the hope that customers will start buying it, which is really doing. The other thing is, as a culture, we don't teach our youth to be in touch with their emotions and follow their passion. I have grown up in a generation where job was the primary thing, and it's only lately that starting your own company, starting your own business has become more widespread. So, question is, as an entrepreneur, are you ready to risk all for following your dreams? Very important. Compared to the Indian culture, what happens in the West, in say US for that matter? The youth are encouraged to be entrepreneurs from childhood. If they show inclination, and your parents encourage you. And you will read about so many entrepreneurs, for example, Bill Gross, Bill Gates, who started at a very, very young age to become entrepreneurs. The other thing about that culture is that they liberally use thought frameworks, business models, business tools, and coaching to get prepared for entrepreneurship. This is not very common in India. The other thing we have seen is that American startups are very, very customer-centric and focus on value creation. In India, what we have seen is startups and businesses are more focused on developing or building a product rather than starting from the customer-centric perspective and asking that question, what is the value getting created for the customer? And then, of course, that culture has highly evolved communication skills and marketing capability. That's how that culture is. And that's not so true for India. So bulletproof your startup, our problem statement for solving why do startups fail and how do we help them grow is that entrepreneurs need to be coached using a combination of thought and business frameworks so that they always have some methodology to carry out what they need to carry out. Also, they need help in strategizing and then creating, executing, reviewing, refining their operations plan. And a structured approach is required because building a business is very complex. Unless you structure your approach, you're going to get lost in the various options and situations you are going to face. So today's workshop is really going to follow, bring to you what are those structures and how can you actually make sure that you become, the probability of your becoming successful improves. And this whole structured approach actually starts with your idea itself. When you get an idea, how do you analyze that idea? How do you look at your idea so that you can be very, very sure that it is actually a business opportunity? Not every idea is a business opportunity. So we've created a framework for tracking your entire, any business's end-to-end journey from idea to the time they build a growing company. We call it the 5 chasms journey. And I'll quickly take you through why 5 chasms. 5 chasms are big gaps you will face in your journey where if you're not careful, you are bound to fail. And these 5 stages are customer development, product go-to-market fit, business model discovery, go-to-market strategy, and growth. And I will go into each of these terms. What do they really mean? What is customer development? What is product go-to-market? All these stages so that you can identify where you are and see what are the issues you're going to face. So customer development really is actually moving from the opportunity to building features or minimum viable product. This is where you start doing pilots and you start figuring out whether the idea that you had, is it really finding any traction? Are the customers that you're doing pilot with liking it? If you don't do this carefully, you may end up building a product, spending a lot of money, and where customers will not buy it. Once you have some degree of success with those features and MVP, you then start expanding it and establishing what we call product go-to-market fit. This is where you will start getting a sense of what your product should be. And once you do this successfully, you now have to discover a business model. What is the business model in which you will actually take this product to your customer? And business model largely covers 3 things. What is the value proposition you have for the customer? What is the systems and processes you will use to take the product to the customer? And what are your revenue streams? Very, very broadly. There are various frameworks available for creating business models, and business model canvas is one such framework. Based on that, you will then start extending your product to a full-fledged solution. And this journey also, a lot of startups fail because they don't do it properly, and then they find that they're unable to find more customers. After your product is fully ready, I would say about 80–85% ready, this is when your real go-to-market strategy has to be developed, because now you're going to go to the main part of your market. And you will have to start looking at market segments, beachheads. How do you make it repeatable? Once you do this successfully, then you will be in the growth stage. And so these are the 5 stages where you can possibly fail if you don't do it properly. And what will happen to you? An idea or a technology breakthrough will give you an opportunity. So that is the first chasm. How do you now convert that opportunity through customer development into a set of features in MVP? Once you reach this stage, maybe then you will start getting a vision of what your product is likely to be. Which is when, once you're successful with few pilots, you will start expanding your product to fit the market, depending on what the market is telling you. This is where you'll also start hiring a team so that you can then pull your sales up. Of course, then you will discover your business model. Post that, you will hire your executive team, and then you really have to build a really very sharp execution. These are the 5 chasms where you are likely to fail if you don't do it right. And for each of these stages, you can leverage well-established international as well as proprietary business frameworks that we have developed to make sure that you do this successfully. We will be going into 3 or 4 frameworks today in this workshop also. Okay, so just a guidance for all of you. If anybody has a question, please type into chat, and I will every 5 to 10 minutes look at chat and see if there is any question that you need answered. So as I mentioned, these are your 5 critical stages where you will have to be careful, and because everything will change, your go-to-market strategy will change, your product will change. These are major stages in your journey. I would suggest you can take a screenshot, because this is something that we are going to refer to very, very often, again and again. Okay, moving on. So what will we cover today? We'll cover how should a startup evaluate such proposition and create an early stage market entry and commercialization. This is the first fundamental question you have to ask yourself is, what is your business all about? Excuse me, I'm just going to grab some water. The other question you have to ask yourself again and again, what is the key to business success? The product that you're building or the customer problem that you're solving? My experience in India has been that most entrepreneurs focus more on product, less on customer. You have to do it the other way. You have to focus on customer and figure out what is bothering him. So what matters the most? The nature and seriousness of customer problem, or how feature rich the product is? And my experience is that most entrepreneurs focus on making their product feature rich without really going deep into what is the customer problem that the customer needs solved. So this is the first caution for you. The other question you have to ask is, how are you going to be different from rest of the crowd? So unless you're solving some really serious customer problem and you're doing it in a manner which is different from the rest, growing the business is going to be challenging. The question you really have to ask yourself is, are you building a regular business or is it really a startup? What is the difference? What is a startup? I don't know how many of you are very clear about how startups are defined. It's extremely important to understand that, because that tells you what you have to become. So as per Government of India, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry notification released way back, April 17, 2015. Their definition was an entity that is up to 5 years from the date of incorporation, has turnover not exceeding 25 crores in last 5 financial years. And the companies, this is a very important line. This actually defines what a startup is, that it is innovating, developing, deploying, and commercializing new products, new processes, or new services driven by technology or intellectual property. To this, we have qualified. You can also be a startup if you're opening new geographies or new customer segments. Example is Meesho. Meesho was Flipkart for tier 2, tier 3 cities. They changed the geography. They do the same thing as what Amazon or Flipkart does, but they changed the geography. They went to a new geography and became successful. Let's take another look at what a startup is. And this is extremely important for you to understand. Any startup is fundamentally a business, and a business needs a customer. The business has an uncertain future. A startup business has an uncertain future because you're setting up the startup for addressing a problem a customer is facing. If you don't have an idea of what the customer problem is, you will end up with the wrong product. And the customer is facing this problem in a job he's attempting to perform or wants to perform in a manner no one has addressed earlier. This is what makes it uncertain, because nobody has done it that way before. You are using a totally new method to solve the problem based on a set of hypotheses about how to address them. So you create a set of hypotheses and then you go ahead and work on that basis. So the first thing that you do at the customer development stage is you start testing your hypotheses. Is my hypothesis right? If it isn't, then you will fine tune your hypothesis so that you can really get to a point where a bunch of customers say, yes, this is useful for us. And if you address the problem successfully within a defined business model, then your startup should have the possibility of generating humongous future profits. This is what will get you investment. If the opportunity is not huge, you will not get funded. You are doing a regular business then. So given this context, what will determine your success? You have to be very clear about this. So critical questions to answer to establish value. What will you be innovating? Remember the government definition: innovating, developing, deploying. Will you be innovating product, service, prevailing business model, business process, or revenue model? What will you be innovating? You have to be crystal clear about this. What will it be driven by? New technology or intellectual property? And it need not be driven by either. But you need to understand and realize that, okay, I'm not using any new technology. I'm not using any intellectual property. I'm going to be changing the business model for this particular customer problem, which is fine because you're innovating the business model. Then you have to also ask that question, will it be in a new market segment or a geography? This will help you get a very clear focus on what is your business really all about. And answering these questions is critical, as they will determine your business strategy, your funding strategy, your go-to-market strategy, revenue model, business model, which will then help you create your business plan. Because without these 5 things, you'll not be able to create your business plan. So what does innovation mean? Innovation is of 3 types. Will you truly disrupt the market? Like Uber disrupted the market. Redbus disrupted the market. Flipkart disrupted the geography, different geography, new geography. What Amazon was doing in US, Flipkart did it in India. Or will your idea just make a sustainable improvement? So for example, when computer companies come out with a faster laptop, better display, it's a sustainable improvement. Competition will catch up quickly. Or you could be just driving efficiency in an existing market. You're doing something faster, better, cheaper. You have to be very clear which of these three are applicable to you. Ideally, you should be disrupting the market if you want to grow big. But if you're not disrupting and you're doing sustainable improvement, then you will have to be running really very efficient operations to stay ahead of the competition. A very famous quote by Elon Musk: if your only defense against invading armies is a moat. Moat is, old forts used to have a water body running around the fort so that enemies could not enter easily. So if your only defense against invading armies is a moat, you will not last long. What matters is the pace of innovation. How fast will you innovate? And Elon Musk has gone and turned all his patents public, made them freely available, because he's very clear that it's innovation that's going to keep him ahead. So what is the high growth recipe for a startup? You must have a compelling breakthrough opportunity through disruptive innovation. Pick up a big fight. Your effort is going to be the same. You're going to work just equally hard whether the fight is small or big. So pick up a big fight so that you have faster revenue growth opportunities. Don't get into small markets. And work on creating sticky communities. If people start using your product or service, they don't leave you. Think Facebook, think Instagram, think WhatsApp. Very sticky. So these three things will determine whether you will become big or not. The next thing that you have to be very clear, how well do you understand the customer and why the customer what is the customer problem that needs to be solved? So from the customer's perspective, how your startup appears to him is the most important aspect. Your identity. It starts with purpose. What is the purpose for which you have set up the company? In all your marketing that you will do, this will become absolutely critical. If you don't understand what problem the customer needs solved, your communication will not be effective and customers will not respond. The next thing in your identity that becomes important is what kind of brand you are establishing. Well, that will depend completely on how effectively will you solve the problem that the customer is facing. And how do you establish customer trust? The third part of your identity is the core values. What customer-centric values will help establish the brand trust? For example, Amazon has a no questions asked policy. Whether you buy a 2 lakh worth of computer from them or you buy a $50 worth of product from them, they will, if you don't find the product useful, you can return it. Unless they very clearly say that no return policy, only replacement. So you must focus on these three things. What is the customer problem that your startup will address? How effectively will you solve the problem and establish customer trust? And what customer-centric values will help establish the brand trust? Very important for you to think upfront, because this is what you will communicate in your marketing. Any questions? Oh, there's a question, I think. Let me have a look. Okay, no question yet. The next thing you need to do is identify the nature of the problem the customer is facing. So is the problem underserved? That is the customer has this problem, but there is no budget for it. It could improve, but nothing suffers if nothing is done. Let me give you a real life example. Think of somebody who needs to go to office every day to work, despite the pandemic, because his office wants him to come there and work. And he has a sprain. So he has a mobike and he has a car also. But that sprain is not, big enough or painful enough for him to not leave for office. So he still goes on his bike and reaches office. So he doesn't budget for it. He doesn't want to go to doctor right now because there's a lot of work pressure at office. But what if this pain increases? And he'll need to address that underserved problem has now become an urgent problem. He can still manage, but it needs fixing. So what he does is, instead of motorcycle, now he goes in his car, because driving a motorcycle with the pain was becoming difficult. But he can manage. He will go to the doctor on the weekend. But then what happens is that pain increases and he can no longer drive the car also. Now it is unavoidable. He will have to get the problem attended. It's like tax returns. Whether you delay, one day you will have to file it. And if he continues, now he finds that he can't even travel by his car. He can't even go hire a cab, because coming down from his apartment to the car is also not down to the ground floor, not possible. The problem has become unworkable. He will have to address it immediately. You must understand the nature of problem you're solving. Is it underserved? Is it urgent? Is it unavoidable? Is it unworkable? So if it is underserved, you may never get a customer. If it is urgent or unavoidable, you will get a customer, but in his own time. If it is unworkable, the customer will sign up right away. So you need to have very clear understanding of what is the nature of problem you're solving. Underserved, urgent, unavoidable, or unworkable. The next thing you need to do is qualify the underlying need. And need can be, basically, you see two dimensions here. We call this a blatant critical matrix. The need, one dimension is problem visibility. The second is customer need. So the problem could be latent. It's not obvious, it is there. Or it could be blatant. It could be staring the customer in his face. The customer need could be aspirational or critical. So ideally speaking, you will find disruptive opportunities here when the problem is latent critical. If it is aspirational, these are typically consumer products, visionary products. Blatant would be consumer commodity products. Blatant critical would be typically enterprise problems to solve. So you need to figure out what is the nature of problem you will be solving. Blatant or latent, aspirational or critical. So can you identify a white space that is not served yet? It's easy to capture, easy to defend, and you can do it uniquely. If you can do that, you will have a killer product. So identifying latent critical needs is the key, because those are the big opportunities. Mubashir has a question. Even if we are clear in solving a problem and easing the pain of the customer, but how to determine if the customer is willing to pay for the solution and how much? Mubashir, is the problem underserved, urgent, unavoidable, or unworkable? If it's an unworkable problem, the customer will pay. So for example, Instagram has, I don't know how many of you are aware, but most fashion companies now advertise, I will, okay. Latent is something that is not very obvious. So for example, let's take Red Bus example. Redbus actually had built an enterprise software for bus operators. And they found it very difficult to sell it to bus operators. Till one day, one of them had to travel out of Bangalore. And they realized how difficult it was to book a seat on a bus. Because what was happening was that tour operators would sell a bunch of seats to travel agents. One travel agent had 3 seats, another had 2 seats. So even though a travel agent may have completed his booking, the bus operator would not have sold all his seats because some other travel agent may not have booked. And from passengers' perspective, they had a challenge that even though the bus was empty, not completely full, they couldn't get a seat from travel agent. This is a latent problem. The problem exists, but it's not in your face because you go from one agent to another agent to another agent and try and get it done. Look at Uber. Till taxi booking apps did not start, getting a cab was painful, but you lived with the problem. It was a latent problem because somehow or the other you would manage to get a cab. Or you would have a local cab wala, you would know who you would ring up and request. So Uber also solved a latent problem. So did Redbus. Look at what Flipkart did initially when they started selling books online. Bookshops were already there. But there was no guarantee that you could buy any book you wanted from the bookshop. Latent problem. Something that you live with. Blatant would be in your face. It's there. So I'm in Bangalore. You guys are spread all over, but traveling around in pandemic is a blatant problem. It's there in your face, whether you like it or not. Hopefully that will explain the difference between latent and blatant. And Bhupeshwar, going back to your point, the nature of problem will determine whether the customer is willing to pay. If it is an unworkable problem, customer will pay. So you have to figure out whether you are solving an unworkable problem or not. Or is it an underserved problem, something the customer will not budget for? Or is it an unavoidable problem? Okay, he may not buy immediately, but one day he will buy. So your understanding of the nature of the problem will help you figure out whether the customer will buy or not. Okay, moving on. So successful startups identify latent critical needs and convert them to blatant critical. Airbnb is a big example of this. They discovered a hidden need and converted it into a blatant critical problem. There is enough material on the net. You should read about how Airbnb established its business. It will be very helpful for you. So you need to reframe the problem to communicate your value prop so that customers view a latent critical need they have been living with from a new perspective. Think Flipkart selling books. Unavailability of books that we are living with. We got a totally new perspective. Order from Flipkart. Order from Amazon. I personally stopped going to bookshops for books. Didn't need to. The other thing that you have to figure out is the nature of need. This is very important. Is it a functional need? Is it a social need? Is it an emotional need? So let me give you an example. Let us say you're going to appear for an interview and that company insists that you need to wear a tie and a coat to work. Consulting company, they want you to wear a tie and a coat. And you don't have a tie and a coat. So you will now, the need is functional. You really don't need it, but because for the interview, you will buy that coat. So you will not go and buy the best possible quote. You'll buy what is good enough for you. But let us say you're going to go on a date, and this is your first date, and you need a new dress. You're going to make sure that the dress impresses your date. So it's a social need. See how the nature of need will determine the customer urgency. Sorry, it's a combination of emotional and social need. If you had to attend your friend's wedding, it's a social need. So you may not buy something functional, you'll buy something better. But if you have to buy, let's say, an achkan for your wedding or a dress for your date, the nature of need is emotional and social both. And the customer will be more prone to buying something that is better, more expensive. So if you're in the business of fashion, you will have to figure out where do you want to be? Do you want to serve functional need, a social need, or an emotional need, or a combination of emotional and social? So understanding the nature of need becomes very important. So once you understand this, then you will have to start thinking, what will drive traction? Are you serving a latent critical need? It will drive traction. Are you solving an unworkable problem? It will drive traction. Or are you just automating a task or making it efficient? It's not going to drive traction. The next question you will have to ask yourself is, what will drive revenues? What will be your pricing strategy? And there also this framework will really help you. Are you going to compete with incumbents? Or are you going to enter bottom of the market? Or will you compete with non-consumption, that you will sell your product in space where the product is not available? Think Meesho, compete with non-consumption. Meesho went to tier 2, tier 3 towns who were aware of Flipkart but didn't have option of buying a Flipkart on Flipkart. So Meesho went and sold a service where customers could not consume the service, existing service. Enter bottom of the market. It's a price game. You kill the competition by making sure your price is the lowest. You decide, compete with the incumbents. You decide to compete with the existing players, but you become better at operations. You become more efficient. You become better. You give better value to the customer at the same price. So you'll have to figure out what is your pricing strategy going to be. Because without figuring this out, you don't have a marketing strategy. So this is a typical problem. The biggest challenge startups face is understanding the customer problem, and they go in a loop. The idea of sharing all these frameworks with you is to give you a structure so that you can look at the structure, analyze it in the structure, using the structure, and get a better understanding. So here's the customer context to the problem being solved. Customer has a job to do. It's either a problem to solve or a task to perform. His need could be critical or aspirational. His job type could be functional, social, emotional. The gains that he is looking for, he requires the gains, or he expects the gains, or he desires the gain, or he'll be surprised by the gains. What will be the pain in adopting? Light pain, severe pain, or unrealized pain? So you can start looking at customer problems in a structure like this to get a better handle on it. This is an excellent framework. It is known as Jobs to Do framework, JBTD framework, very useful for analyzing jobs. We have another workshop. You can find it on our YouTube channel. In fact, you can see the link here, where we go deep into this framework, how to use this framework. I want you to do this exercise very, very quickly. Start qualifying your own startup. So I will stop for 5 minutes. But I want you to answer this. Take a piece of paper and write down answers to these. What is the job your customer is trying to perform? The reason for this exercise is once you do that, you will be surprised by a totally new thinking you will have towards your customer. The second question, what is the nature of job the customer is trying to perform? Is it functional? Is it social? Is it emotional? What is the pain the customer is undergoing that needs to be alleviated? What is the gain your product or service will offer? What is the pain the customer will undergo in adopting your solution? How easy or difficult will it be for the customer to adopt your solution? How sticky will your product or solution be? So I'm going to stop for 5 minutes. Please do this exercise. And if there are any specific questions coming out of that exercise, ask me. Okay, the 5 minutes are up. Any questions? Any learning from the exercise? So I guess not. So I'm going to move on. So all this is basically going to lead to this one thing. How differentiated is your value proposition? How different are you from anybody else in the market? Oh, there is a question. Okay, Anubhav does not know how it will be different. So Anubhav, it becomes extremely important to create that differentiation. You will have to go deeper into the customer problem and find out what somebody is not doing that you could do. And the customer, the jobs to be done framework can be very helpful to you in identifying that. So read up about that. There's a lot on net about the framework. Do read up and it could help you. it is important because Anubhav, if you don't differentiate, then the competition will make it very difficult for you. Yeah, they will push on prices, and you know, pricing is a loser game. So don't ever talk of price. Talk value. So unless you are clear that okay, this is the value I'm going to deliver to the customer, you will not be able to differentiate yourself. Rakesh, that can be done by doing what we call A/B testing. You'll have to actually do a lot of A/B testing to figure it out. Read up about A/B testing. There's enough on the net about A/B testing. How do you do that? If you do proper A/B testing, you will be able to command your price for something that is fundamentally emotional and social. I'm a little confused by emotional, social, and legal, because legal will be functional. Yeah, it is A/B testing. A/B testing. A/B testing means you create two scenarios and test it with two different group of customers to see how do they respond. And A/B testing is fundamental thing you will have to keep doing in the initial stages till you discover your business model. A for Apple, B for Bombay. Manual scavenging law violation is a threat. Emotional because you want to avoid manual scavenging. Rakesh, we'll probably have to talk a lot more about this. That is it functional? Is it emotional? Is it social? It will depend on who's looking at it. So it may not be a straightforward answer. I would hesitate to take a bet right now without really going deeper into what you're trying to do. Okay, moving on. I don't think there's any other question. Okay, moving on. I suggest you take a snapshot of this. This is extremely important. This is how you should be able to define your value proposition. I'm going to read it out to you and explain. My value proposition. What is the value for the customer? Is for target customers. What market segment will you operate in? Who are dissatisfied with current alternatives? Who will you compete with? Our products, services provides key problem solving capability. What problem will you solve for the customer? By new product, what does the product do? That is unlike the current product alternative. How is it better? Because your product's differentiation. So how are you differentiated? How is your product differentiated? Okay. I hope all of you have taken the screenshot because this is a really very, very key framework. Okay, Anubhav says, wow, I don't know to what, maybe he loves this framework. Okay, what will your marketing journey be like? Now let's get on to that. This is a very famous research done in 1960s by Dr. Roger. I will not waste time in telling you what the research was for, because you'll be surprised. It was actually done to figure out how farmers will adopt new potato seed. But what this discovered was that initially people buy for novelty. So you will get innovators buying your product. Whenever you do something which is new, which is novel, later on, it will be bought by early adopters and they will buy it for competitive advantage. And that is where you start facing your chasm, because this is a difficult chasm to jump, because you have to move from innovators, early adopters to your real market. And your real market is a conservative market. They are looking for benefits. Somebody has a comment. I have requested, Rakesh, I have requested the SIIC to copy it to my YouTube channel, or maybe they will copy it to SIIC channel. You can check with them. So early conservators look for benefits. So see how the market is changing. Initially, innovators will buy for novelty. Then early adopters will buy for competitive advantage. Then early conservators for benefits. Competitive advantage is outward looking. You are competing with the world outside. Benefits is inward looking. Fundamental difference. Conservatives look inwards, adopters look outwards. Why is this important to know? It will actually determine the psychology that you will use in marketing. Yeah, it will be available on Incubator IITK YouTube channel. Okay, so later on, late conservatives will move in, then they buy for ease of use. So this is 68% of your market. But your challenge is that you will never get this customer upfront. You will get innovators and early adopters. Yeah, Anubhav, conservatives will look for benefits, so therefore they will ask for ROI. Yeah, there are frameworks to evaluate ROI outside the scope of this. You could send me a separate query and I can help you on that. But I think Anubhav raised a very fundamental question, that if you are just launching and your customer is asking you ROI, then you have the wrong customer. He's not an innovator, he's an early conservative. Innovator will get excited about bells and whistles. If he sees a new way of doing things, he'll get excited and you can get him involved. So therefore, you have to be very smart and initially work with innovators, then with early adopters, and then go on to early conservators, because early conservators will also ask you for reference. Tell me, where have you done this already? Early adopter will say, okay, I hope I am the first one you're doing it for, because he wants competitive advantage. Okay, moving on. And finally, laggards. सबने खरीद लिया तो वो भी खरीदेंगे. Now, how does this affect you? Let's look at that. This is how your sales will move. And there is a very good book. If you please pick it up and read it, Crossing the Chasm, which is by Jeffrey Moore. It's a wonderful book to read. Let's go a little deeper. So initially you get technology enthusiasts, then visionaries, then pragmatists, then conservators, then skeptics. So I'm just renaming what I showed you earlier. And I'm actually now showing you how big the chasm can be. This is the most difficult thing to cross. But this is your early market. The technology enthusiasts and visionaries. Your pilots are probably happening here with technology enthusiasts. Don't try to do a pilot with pragmatists. You will end up building a lot of features which everybody may not require. And this is your mainstream market. Your challenge is that when you are starting, you're looking at your mainstream market. Biggest mistake. Look at your initial market, which is going to be innovators, enthusiasts. You have a market strategy specifically for this stage, early stage. And your market strategy will change here for the mainstream market. Okay, there's one more question. Okay, the book title is Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. Going to previous slide. It's there at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. So this is where you should focus. Once you've got your pilots running with technology enthusiasts, then move on to visionaries, people who are looking for competitive advantage. It's a stage-by-stage process. If you do it smartly, you will succeed. This is where it's going to get tough. Jumping from visionaries to pragmatists is going to be difficult. And this requires a complete change of thinking, completely different marketing strategy. But if you cross this successfully, then you will start growing. And if you have, at this stage, your business model should become clear to you, because mainstream market will not respond to you if you don't have a robust business model in place. This is the customer development stage, the first chasm that you will face. Where should your sales focus be? And what should your sales focus be? So initially, ideation, prototyping, technology creation, focus on market research, A/B testing, pilots. Don't waste your time chasing this market. It's not going to work. Once you've done this successfully, you've got some prototypes working, and you have a reasonable confidence that there is a market response. Now get into what we call product to market fit, which is market focused business and product development. This is also discovering business model. This is where your first 100 customers will come from. So focus on this as your starting marketing strategy. This is your early stage marketing strategy. And once you've discovered your business model, it's going to be grow and scale. That's your mainstream market. I want to quickly touch on how do you establish price points. There was a question about, I think Anubhav had asked about pricing, or maybe somebody else. First of all, establish a minimum price. That's your break-even analysis. You should have a strong financial planning in place. And this is the minimum to keep your head above the water. We call it make enough operating profit. You may not make net profit, but make operating profit so that your operations can continue. And that your minimum price will determine. But how do you select the right price of your choice in a given range? So there's a maximum price value, which is value pricing. You establish a value and you put a price to it, right? This is your desired price. What's going to happen is when you do interviews, A/B testing, you will find customers' expected price. So this is the range in which you will exist. This has to be above the break-even analysis, and it will never cross value pricing. If you reach value pricing, you're solving a latent, critical, unworkable problem. Okay, moving on. So what that price is, the interviewing customers, A/B testing is what will get you there. You will figure out, okay, this looks like the price. Hang on, 2 questions. Anubhav has, if I can offer really low price, shall I straight away offer? It's difficult. There is a way to raise prices, Anubhav, and it's probably outside the scope of this discussion. We have a workshop video on our channel, Bulletproof Your Startup channel on YouTube. So look up that pricing strategy. We go a little deeper there. And if you still have questions, just reach out to me. Okay, moving on. Then you'll have to start figuring out your distribution model. What are you? B2B, B2C, C2C, what B2B to C, what is the model that you're going to be using? We have a workshop on sales funnel where we go a little deep into distribution channels. I think there's a sales funnel video on YouTube also. So whatever I'm you today is actually culling slides from something like 15 or 20 different videos workshops that we have done. So revisit your market positioning. I told you that your marketing will change depending on where your journey is. So you'll keep revisiting your market positioning, and your pricing strategy would have to be figured out again and again, because incumbents will change. You'll have to keep figuring out what works best for your market. So don't take a fixed stand on pricing. Till you don't reach a stage where you are moving from visionaries to pragmatists, you will really not know what pricing your real market, the larger part of the market, will support. So let's look at different stages of marketing. This is the same 5 Cousins framework that I had shared with you earlier. So you will have one go-to-market strategy here itself, from idea to opportunity to discovering feature MVP. And next, you're trying to work with technology enthusiasts, the innovators. And then you will have a strategy for early adopters. These will be radically different strategies. You can't have the same strategy working for everybody. And then you will have the real go-to-market strategy, which is your third go-to-market strategy. So your marketing strategy will have to evolve. You cannot assume that you have the right marketing strategy on day one. Same for your product roadmap. Your product roadmap will evolve as you move along in the journey. So how should you position your product? Very important. I mean, I'm now really moving to core of marketing here for you. So invariably, all the engineering entrepreneurs focus on technology, which is products and features. So they talk about features. My product has this feature, my product has that feature. They build so many features. The thing is, the moment you talk about features, the customer will find reasons to reject your feature. You'll be surprised, or he will ask you for 10 more features. So the weakest marketing strategy is the one that is based on features. The next best strategy is using behavioral economics for figuring out how to position your product. And this is all about how do you position price for a customer. So a very interesting example, I subscribed to a magazine called Economist. When Economist wanted to move to a digital version, they found, so I think the subscription was some $100 and for a print version, and they came out with a digital version for $30. And nobody was buying. And then they created what we know is creating a dummy price. Basically, what you do is you price a product you want to sell in a manner that the customer thinks he's getting it free. So what Economist did was that it showed 3 photos of Economist, and first said print version $100, digital version $30, print and digital $100. So the pure print version and print and digital were $100. Both were same. Now the customer psychology changed, and the customer thought that I'm going to get the digital version free in any case. So how does it matter? I'm paying same money. So let me subscribe to print plus digital. Beautiful strategy. Once the customer started using the digital, he realized that digital is also good enough. And within 3 years, using this dummy pricing strategy, Economists shifted 70% of their subscribers to digital. So they didn't talk about advantages of digital and why they should go for digital. They simply used what we call behavioral economics. to change customer thinking. And then you can use psychology. It's all a question of working with people's emotions. And I'm going to show you 3 videos to illustrate what this means. So this is about emotions. If you can position your product emotionally, you will be surprised how customers will lap up your product. So idea is to move from rational to the irrational, because decision-making, purchase decision-making is irrational. It is always emotional. So I'm going to show you these 3 video clips. Move is for a Move cream. And I want you to tell me after the video, what are the features of Move that made the customer buy it? Okay, I guess you can't see the video. That's the message I'm seeing. Let me try the Vodafone one, see if that works. Oh, hang on. I know what I have to do. I have to actually change a setting, which allows me to just hold on. Okay, change the setting, change the setting. What did I change last time? Streaming link, share sound, optimize for video clip. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I'll share the video window. Let it start. Okay, so okay, could you guys see the video? Somebody type yes or no. Oh, you couldn't. Oh, goodness. Okay. I'm not going to waste more time here, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that, oh, Hardik could see it. Some guys could, some couldn't. Very interesting. Okay. So the entire campaign, and it's there on the let me post the link. Okay, it's going to be difficult to copy the link. So, but search for a move ad. The entire ad is about a husband and wife frolicking and, chasing each other. And basically, the husband is watching a cricket match and she snatches away the remote from him and says statue. So he doesn't move. And then she says, okay, move. And he chases her, running after her, and she bends and she sprains her back. And then the main line comes, blah, 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 pyar mein, etc. Move cream lagaye. So the entire campaign doesn't even mention why move, what is good about move, but it uses that playfulness of husband-wife to emotionally link use of move to love between husband and wife. So it's completely functional need, but positioned emotionally. This is what you'll have to learn about marketing, that how do you take a functional need and position it emotionally? You find this in Vodafone ad also, Glanza ad also. I mean, whenever you look at products which are very difficult to talk about emotionally, you will find invariably the advertisers will create an emotional story around it and link the product to that story. Okay, only Hardik can see it. Now Anubhav has a latent critical need. Anubhav, it has become blatant. Just go to YouTube and watch it. Okay, I'm going to move on. Okay, now I'm going to move to basically a very smart marketing strategy that is called growth hacking. If you're familiar with it, great. If you're not, I will just quickly take you through it so that you get the basics of it, using growth hacking strategy to grow customers. What should your growth hacking team be like? What the growth hacking process should be like? What growth hacking channels can you use? How do you master the funnels, the sales and the marketing funnel? Growth hacking tactics. If I get time, I'll also cover growth hacking tactics for marketplaces and SaaS startups, if I get time. And getting the basic foundation of growth strategy right. And growth metrics. How do you track growth of your startup? So let's look at these numbers. Can you quickly find an answer? How much is 0.99 raised to power 365 or 0.995 raised to 365? This clearly is 1. So if growth is 0% per day, the org will remain where it is, status quo. If you are degrowing at 0.5% a day, you'll be 16% of where you were a year ago. If you grow at 0.5% per day, you will be 600% of where you were 1 year ago. If you grow at -1%, you will be at 3% and ready to shut down. If you grow at 1% a day, you will be 3,800% of where you were a year ago. So growth hacking is all about that 1% per day. How do you grow at an incremental rate every day so that after a year, you are 38 times of what you were a year before? This is the basic philosophy behind growth hacking. So if the org was at 100 customers a year ago and the customers grew at 1% per day, which to you may sound small. Okay, you're just adding 1 customer a day initially. You will have 380,000 customers today. So never forget this maths. This is an extremely important maths. So I'm going to share another very interesting framework. This is Dave McClure's Pirate Metrics, AA, RRR funnel. And we look at metrics and channels at each stage for the user's path towards customers and recommenders of the brand. But remember, this is a process. It is not a set of tactical actions. It's not something that you do incrementally, aaj kuch kiya, kal kuch kiya, and you will get growth hacking. It's not going to happen. It's a process. So the beginning of this process is acquisition, getting the inquiries. How do potential customers get to know about us? This is the first question you have to answer for yourself. And there are various channels available, SEO, SEM, social blog, blah, blah. All these things are available to you. Then, okay, you got the potential customers to know about you. How do you activate them? How do potential customers get to try our product? This is the next question you have to answer. So here is where you start pulling into your content, homepage, landing page, product features. You start talk about those problems so that they start identifying with it. Okay, now that you've activated, how do you retain these potential customers? How many potential customers will stick around? So this is where you start using emails and alerts, system events and time-based features, blogs, content, whatever is relevant for you. How do you generate revenue? How do you convert customers who stuck around? How many will actually become customers? So ads, lead gen, biz dev, subscription, this is the time when you start closing in and start pushing the customer to convert. American companies do this very, very successfully because they are born marketers. And then once they have become customers, how many will actually become customers and then also give you references? Each of these things has to be scripted and planned for, whether it is acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral. Please don't look at your marketing effort as one single block. Okay, I have to market. No, there are 5 stages to it. And each stage will have a different approach, different channel to go through, different tactics, different techniques. Somebody has a question. How much of a free trial is okay? I think this is Anubhav asking. Is there a benchmark? I want to know if a product actually has a market or not. Anubhav, so free trial has to be used judiciously, and it will be used at this stage between retention and revenue. How do you actually make him a customer? So if you've done good acquisition, activation, and customers are hanging around from whatever methods you're using, they're still connected with you. One of the strategies could be to offer him a free trial, if that is relevant for your product. But don't start with free trial. Follow the process. No, I would not use trials for activation. Never. I would actually establish the problem statement in activation. So it could be, canned demos of the product. I would use, personally, I don't know your specific situation, Anubhav, but I would use it at the retention stage so that I can take him to revenue. Because in activation, I want to make sure that the customer understands very, very clearly that the problem that I'm solving. Because if he doesn't get a hang of the problem that I'm solving, he may not connect to what you're doing. Okay, moving on. And then referrals, again, starts a cycle of acquisition, activation. The process cannot be circumvented. This is the process you'll have to follow. Okay, so what are the 3 engines of growth you can use? First thing is virality. How do you make your product viral? And you will grow primarily through people referring you to their friends, families, colleagues, existing customers. Take example of Dropbox. I mean, Dropbox gave free storage to recommend the product to their friends. They incentivized the Dropbox user to share documents with their service more frequently. They introduced more people to the brand, giving people who had never heard of them a little free sample. So, Anubhav, this is probably an answer to the question you're asking. They made referral their activation. So referrals in their case was the activation. So it will depend on your situation. Apple did something different. Apple, when they came out with iPod, they made white headphones when headphones were black. So it stood out. It became a fashion statement. Every person with an iPod became a walking ad for the company. So create a distinctive position for yourself by using these kind of tricks. Hotmail had already about 20,000 users 1 month after launching in 1996. They opted to market your service directly to the friends, families, and colleagues of those users by employing a very simple strategy. They added a tagline, get your free email at Hotmail. So anybody who was getting an email also got this tagline. The recipient would click on the tagline link, and which could direct them to a page where this was the page where they could set up their own account. So there is no single strategy for virality. It will be very unique to you. But for that, whatever I've told you about how do you look at your problem, how do you look at customer problem, how do you analyze your company, so that you get a really sharp understanding of what business you are in, what problem you are solving, so that you would then know how to make it viral. Leverage your existing user base as much as you can. PayPal, a very smart company. I mean, all these guys, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, very smart bunch of people. Even Reed, who started living LinkedIn, came from there. Half a platform hack, half fake it till you make it. And they were very smart to tag on to eBay. And they figured that eBay is a vital distribution platform, and they worked with eBay to create a bot so that only PayPal was the payment method available. And the entire eBay customer base was their customer base. So fake it till you make it. Anything that works for you. Facebook. I mean, Facebook was all about exclusivity. Very careful expanding. They didn't just rush into everything. They went college by college, made sure every college worked well for them. Exclusivity, controlled growth. That's how Gmail also started, exclusivity. So there are there can be various viral strategies that you can use. Twitter. In early days, Twitter had a bit of a retention problem. Users poured in, but few actually engaged with the site. Till they figured, then when they analyzed their customer base, that who stays and who goes away, they figured that anybody who had followers or who had likes stayed on. So Twitter rebuilt the new user experience to encourage following others. And that the positive impact on its retention was dramatic and instant. So analyze your customer base, who's doing what, why is he doing what he is doing. That will help you figure out. Improved user experience after customer segmentation and sharp focus. Airbnb. There are enough examples of virality, and I mean, if you just go online, you will get enough information. I'm going to kind of rapidly go past this. How are we doing on time? Half an hour left. Okay. Then create a sticky experience. Virality, stickiness. Think WhatsApp, think FB. Create an irresistible experience that keeps people around as long as possible. Paid. For companies other than software, SaaS, this becomes the most likely successful path. So you can buy subscribers. Like Groupon spent $179 million to acquire 33 million new subscribers in 1 quarter before going public. Spend ad money to build customer lifetime value. So each of these 3 engines will work. Virality, stickiness, paid. Pay to get your customers. However, the degree to which each performs depends totally on your nature of business. So there is no one size fits all. You will really have to build a good understanding of your customer, where he exists, what does he do, what is the problem you're solving to drive this. What does a growth hacking team look like? What skills and capabilities will you require? So you will require coding and automation, first of all. Then you'll require data analytics and testing. You have to constantly keep analyzing the data. You'll require creative marketing. You don't need digital marketing people. You can run this yourself if you understand your customer base very well. And apply behavioral economics and applied psychology. I've already given you examples of this. So you do retention-driven development of code. How do I drive retention? How do I market in the digital world? That's data analytics and combination of creative marketing will tell you along with coding and automation. So growth hacking teams use their internal technical teams to build the tools and the widgets to do the marketing. Use data for informed action. Constantly look at data like Twitter did. Understand online behavior. How are customers behaving online to drive your growth hacking strategy? So this creative marketing coding is technical hacks. Behavioral economics and coding, you drive better UX through coding to drive behavioral economics or applied psychology. KPI measurements, basically figure out what you need to measure, drive analytics to figure out, are you reaching their goals that you have set for yourself? And this is really about conversion rate optimization. So these are the things you will have to do. This helps you win big battles with small budgets. You craft with hand and then automate the procedure. Don't depend on some digital marketing team to run it for you. Understand customer behavior and design KPIs accordingly. Know your customer and focus on the main KPIs, whatever is required to drive your customer towards conversion. What's the process? Work as a team. Generate ideas as a team. Analyze, prioritize, select 2-3 ideas to test. Start with the best sounding idea and create a success hypothesis. What will define your success? So it could be if 5% customers sign up, potential customers sign up, it's a success. I'm just stating a goal for you. It could be as simple as that. Keep measuring outcomes and check against your goal. Metrics measuring is extremely important. Then analytics, gain insight, validate hypothesis, modify goal, go back to generating ideas. So it's a constant, continuous process. And you must build this capability in your organization. What are the various channels you can use to reach? It will depend on your nature of business, but email, newsletters, widgets, content marketing, SEO, SMM, SEM, blog, you name it. I mean, these are the channels available to you. What works for you will depend on the nature of your business, where your customer exists. So this is how your acquisition will happen. For activation, get involved in product features. What is the problem you're solving? Start talking about this to the customer. How is your product solving the specific problems for the customer? Retention. Once you've done that, then provide him content through blogs. You can use emails and alerts to keep him connected to you. So that's what you will have to do for retention. And hopefully this will convert into business, and through emails and widgets and campaigns and contests, you will drive referral. So it will depend. If you're a B2B business, your approach will be different from a B2C or a B2B2C. So I'm just mapping back, what will you do at which stage of your funnel? Acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral. Here's another very interesting framework. This was done by the gentleman who designed DuckDuckGo, Gabriel Weinberg. He's written a very good book called Traction. You could read it. A lot of learning in it. He lists 19 channels And his point is that use this framework, essentially define the top 3 channels and set goals. Put them in the center. Then write your next 6 in the middle layer, here and here. Cross out the ones you've already used. Repeat after testing the channels. So test the channels. Again, that same A/B testing. Which channel works for you, which doesn't work for you. A lot of hard work here. But if you do this in a structured manner, you will hit the right channel and you'll be able to reach your customers. Ask for help if you need some. Don't hesitate to reach out to people who understand how channels work. Okay, so that's growth hacking and bullseye framework. I want to move on to marketing operation. What is marketing operation? And what is it that you do and how do you do it? Any questions so far? So both AARR and bullseye frameworks work and are effective. So try and use them. But you will have to manage your marketing and sales effort through funnels and automating them. So I'm going to share a funnel framework that we use for our startups that we coach. So here are the possible ways you can advertise: direct marketing, advertising, public relations, social media, events, market research. The first thing you have to do is create category awareness. What is your business about? Without doing this, a customer may not identify with you. And then create a brand awareness. What does your company stand for? And this could be through content, this could be through ads, whatever will be relevant for you. Then products and service awareness. What is your value proposition? So I'm going to repeat this. What is your business about? What does your company stand for? What is your value proposition? This is basically generating an inquiry. Traditionally in marketing, we say generating an inquiry. And in the framework that I shared with you, it was acquisition. These 3 things is what you would do to acquire. And then you will figure out how to engage with the customer and generate his interest in the product. This is activation, nurturing an inquiry. And converting an inquiry into sales lead, establishing intent. They're getting, for example, Anubhav, you had a question. This is the time to offer him a free trial so that you retain him. And for each of these stages, you'll have to create and test scripts and see what works. That will give you a sales lead. And this is what a sales funnel will look like. So you'll have a bunch of leads generated by marketing. Now you need to establish intent of the customer. Is he serious? And this is where, offering him free trials, offering him, advantages to figure out, is he really serious? Once he shows seriousness, you have what we call sales qualified leads. So you will now take him on a path where he starts evaluating options. Should he take an enterprise version? Should he take a personal version? What should he do? So your entire communication with him now has to be help him evaluate options. So you have prospects now. And they will keep dropping. There will be some conversion ratios that will work here. And now you move to quote proposal stage, and this is where it actually moves to the revenue stage. You try to now convert him into a customer. Guys who got your quote proposals are now your potential customers, and you need to now move them to purchase. So Anubhav has a question: should he actually do personal visits, or should he actually do digital growth hacking? So Anubhav, difficult to answer without knowing your product specifically, but initially, at least in the idea stage, you will have to, if you're in a B2B space, you'll have to do personal visits. I mean, you'll have to find those the pilot cases to work with. And but if it's a huge market and you cannot automate the marketing process and sales process, unless you're selling a really enterprise product, which is significantly expensive, doing people-driven business development is going to be difficult for you. That's my sense. And but it will really depend on your product and price points and what is your cost structure like. Okay, purchase to and now you have customers. You need to have a process for nurturing the customer also. Don't just because he's ordered, forget him. No, he's going to give you referrals. So this is the retention stage, what you saw in Dave's framework. And this is your revenue stage. And you remarket at this stage for repeat orders, cross-sell, upsell to the same client base. And you must have a step for referrals. So this is the sales funnel framework that we use at Bulletproof Your Startup. That helps, that maps back to the AARRR framework that you saw. And for each stage, you'll have to create tests and test scripts for each stage. Very quickly onto metrics. How are we doing on time? Okay, we have 20 minutes. The type of metrics and measurements you should have. Quantitative, traffic analysis, user engagement, report what users do, track usage and conversion percentages. Qualitative, usability testing, session monitoring. How is, especially if you're website driven, this becomes very important for the retention stage. Can you really retain the customer on your website? Comparative, A/B, multivariate testing, compare what users do in one scenario versus another, see which copy graphics, UI are most effective. I'm giving you a larger set of categories of metrics you can do. What will be applicable for you? You have to work on it, think about it and work on it. Tracking your competition, monitoring and tracking competitors. Compare channels, keyword traffic, demographic targeting. What is the demographic they are targeting? What are you targeting? So broadly speaking, this is coming from another framework which corporates were using, and it's been adapted for startups. So start with attraction KPIs, traffic metrics, organic, direct, paid, social. Then engagement KPIs, conversion into trial, percentage of clients who unlocked key functions, feedback obtained, meaningful conversations. Value KPI, how many paid subscriptions do you have? How much time are users spending interacting with the product? Are they giving you referrals, net promoter score, or are they subscribing to your newsletters? Churn rate, very important. If you have a high churn rate, you have a problem with the product or the site, and you'll have to work on it. Economic metrics, which are internal, what is your cash flow burn rate? What is your customer acquisition cost? What revenues, what costs, what profits? Track this very, very diligently because investors look for this. So this comes from another framework which corporates use called balanced scorecard. Personally, I found this very effective to track performance. Additional engagement KPIs, website metrics, social engagement metrics, mail list metrics. To measure everything because that's going to be critical for you. So there's no end to it. I mean, this will be there in the video. You could go back to this and have a look at it. I'm not going to spend time talking about it. Some more metrics for you. So you will have to figure out what is relevant for you. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, my workshop, and I will be happy to take questions. It looks like there are no questions.
Hello, everyone. Please post your questions in the chat box or the question answer section.
There is a question here. Do you coach? Yes, I do. We have a team of coaches. We are about 12 people together. So we do coaching. Typical economics, it depends on the startup. Very difficult to give you any cost, but basically, it's a combination of a low fee and equity.
Do we have any other questions?
Okay, there is somebody, anonymous attendee, say if you are on news, but still we don't get much traction, how to go about it? So I think the question is, if you're on news and you don't have traction, why don't you have traction? I mean, either your customer is not watching that news, right? Or the news is not interesting enough for the customer. So is the news reaching your customer? What are you doing to make sure that the news reaches your potential customers? I think those are the questions to answer. And go back and examine, what is the nature of problem you're solving for the customer? Have you communicated that to the customer? Does the customer understand what will get solved? So this is the answer to the open question that I had here. Say if we were on news, but still we don't get much traction, how to go about it?
Do we have any other questions?
Thanks, Anubhav. Thanks for the comment. Any example of B2B referral marketing? Could you talk a little more about it? The question is not clear. Okay, it is really difficult to get referrals in B2B. It will depend. I mean, it depends a lot on what is the depth of relationship you have built with B2B. And there are methods and techniques of getting a B2B give you referrals. It depends on your product. I don't know what your product is, but what your service is. But I presume that you may be into some kind of an enterprise solution. And there are various methods for generating referrals from B2B, but those are very standard methods. Why don't you go online and check? There is so much content available how to generate referrals in B2B market. And without knowing the business, it's very difficult for me to give any specific advice. So I can only tell you that, yes, there are methods available for getting referrals in B2B marketing. And sorry to hear that nothing worked out. Maybe you can get in touch with us one-on-one and we will see how to best to help you. There is something in the chat. Okay, Jitendra says thank you. Sneha says thank you. You're welcome, both of you, Jitendra, Sneha. Q&A. I guess that's it, Anamika.
Yes, sir. Should we conclude
Hang
the
on.
session
Hang on. Tejas has a question. If the customer expected price is less than the value-based price, how to deal with the problem? Should we reduce the price? Tejas, so the thing is, don't ever talk price, talk value. Because price is something you can negotiate, value you can't. And it's something that you have to learn in marketing, that you never talk price, you talk value. From customer's perspective, what is the value he's getting? If you can get the right index to the value, and you can do that only once you really get into the depth of the problem that you're solving for him. Is it unworkable? Is it unavoidable? Is it urgent? Is it underserved? That will define the value that he's getting. You're welcome, Prasun. So reducing the price stages is never the answer. I mean, if you are getting into a situation where you're reducing the price, then maybe you're not correctly figured out what your market is and whether you're delivering the right value to that market. I guess, Anamika, we can stop here. I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So we'll move forward for concluding this session now. Sir, first of all, I would like to thank you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with the innovators, startups, and us. The workshop covered all the important aspects for the commercialization, marketing, and brand establishment, which will certainly benefit all of us to strategize towards success. Thank you for giving us your time. It was wonderful having you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Akanksha.
Thank you everyone for joining the workshop. The recording is available on the YouTube as well, and you can reach out to Sir anytime for further help.
Bye guys, have a great day.